What are we talking about again? Focus. There we go. There's the
That
start
should
of the
be
episode.
the intro for
Welcome.
sure.
Okay, let's get right into it. Okay, so today we are talking about focus. Welcome back to the Freedom Equation podcast. Ready to go?
Yes.
This
The
is
two
something
most
it is-
focused.
Yes. It took us continuous reminders that this was about focus, which usually is the indication of why we're talking about it. But I do feel like a lot of people, creatives, people that watch this podcast, listen to this podcast, probably can relate to.
1 million
This is
%.
focus, and it doesn't even matter if you're creative. I think when you see the way people work,
Yeah.
it's unbelievable how easy it is to be distracted by
Yes.
a million things.
Yes.
Some I feel is preventable, and some is natural, and you just have to learn how to
How to manage it.
manage it.
Yeah. Well, how would you define focus?
Well, to me, it's just like the ability to just do one thing at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's, to me, that's the hardest focus, I should say,
Yeah.
is the one of I have this task to get completed,
Yeah.
and that's what I have to do.
Yeah.
And doing that while knowing the other things that I want to do,
Yeah.
need to do, have dreams to do.
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like anyone in the creative space especially,
Yeah.
that is so overwhelming at times that it's not always just about your phone being a
Yeah.
distraction. We're going to talk about that kind of stuff too. It's sometimes
sure.
just your brain.
Yeah. I kind of
It's
think
all
about
over the
it
place.
as like a funnel of attention,
Mm-hmm.
which in some of our notes for this, we were talking about like the science of attention.
Yep.
And the fact, like the sheer fact that attention is a limited resource, like
Yep.
your brain can only focus on one thing for so long.
Yep.
Similar to willpower, your attention is also like a battery.
Mm-hmm.
And when it goes down,
Yep. And it's when, not if.
correct.
It will run out
Correct.
in a quicker amount of time than you hope.
Yes. Because
It's
even
not just
somebody,
possible to be like 8 hours today. I'm hyper focused. It's
Right.
just not possible.
I think what they say as far as the science of it, that someone can only be focused for about total of 4 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
Which
And that's
is-
where the concept of like the 4 hour work week came from, or the 4 hour whatever they is that what's called 4 hour work week,
4 hour work week. Yeah.
something like that. It's
Yeah.
that it's kind of the concept that you really only have a certain amount. I think that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But you only can focus for so long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how do you manage that and kind of work through that? But I think the very first part of that is, and this is sort of a theme I feel like in so many of our podcasts, is first and foremost the knowledge and awareness
Mm-hmm.
of what something is. Because I often say, whenever you misunderstand something, you tend to misuse it. And so the first part of it is just understanding exactly what focus is.
Yep. And I like some of the notes we have here too. You know, the two main types of attention. I like this
Yeah,
too.
this is good.
There's selective attention, which is focusing on one thing while ignoring others, and sustained attention, which is maintaining focus over time. Like that's very different. Like
Yeah.
And for me, it's definitely maintaining focus over time. That is the hardest
Your
thing.
struggle.
Yeah, because it's easy for me to quickly focus on something when I'm right
Mhm.
at it. It's really hard if I know that task lasts longer than
Mm-hmm.
what I want it to last.
Yeah.
Especially, it's hard as someone who gets the dopamine from completing things.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to work on tasks that you know actually can't get finished that day.
Yeah.
In their grand scheme. So you have to try to say to yourself, what would finish today look like?
Yes.
So that you can get that excitement to even get back to it. Because if I
Yes.
know that I'm doing some sort of edit, or we're doing some sort of something that is a multiple week task of, if you're writing a book, for example,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to just wait until you finish the book to be like, okay, you have to finish a paragraph,
Yes.
finish a sentence, finish a chapter,
Yes.
and look for those little victories
Yep.
and use those as motivation.
Mm.
And maybe even make those your stopping point
Mm-hmm.
before you move on to another task or whatever. Or else it can be,
That's good.
you might feel like you're never completing anything,
Yeah.
but you're not going to write a book in a day. But you might not be able to write a chapter in a day.
Definitely
You
not.
have flow states, where you might write almost what it feels like the whole book in a day.
Mhm.
There are other times that you might be on one line and be like, I have no clue
Yeah.
I don't even know what I want to do next.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. Do you think for the two types of attention that people are either really good at one thing and really bad at the other thing?
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, because I think some people, like the one is obviously selective, focusing on one thing while ignoring others. That to me is more of, I put my phone on do not disturb. I face it down on the desk. I put noise canceling headphones on at a coffee shop, where you're basically saying, I'm doing this task, so I'm just going to drown out the sound around me
Yeah.
or the distractions around me. You can do that quickly, and you could easily get 30 minutes and, you know, whatever on that. The overtime is something that is beyond just silencing your phone or just putting noise cancellation on, because your brain can't always just sustain that type of focus.
Right.
So I think that I go back and forth with when it's hard and when it's not.
Yeah. And we live in such a distractible world and culture, which is sometimes why I just want to move to another country.
Yeah. But that would have only worked if you started in that country.
You think?
Yeah, because I feel like if you go to the other country, you know what you're missing now. It's like the people that seem incredibly happy to me when they, you know, are in poverty and when they, and you're like, how could they do that?
Because they've always been there.
Because they don't know the difference.
Yeah.
We already know it. Which is why I feel like it's hard to tell people, like, I'm going to, you know, you've seen people do these challenges, right? I'm going to use a flip phone for 30 days. Or
Yeah.
That's impossible once you realize what it is with it. It's
I mean, I see what you're saying, but wouldn't you, like, for example, if I move to Italy,
Here goes the dream again.
wouldn't I appreciate it more?
Yeah, if you could do it.
Yeah. Which I think I could, but that's,
Yeah, and maybe you could.
yeah.
But I feel like there'd be the opposite, where someone would be like, I want to go to Italy to just get away and to relax and recharge my mind. But then they realize that, think of all the good content I could post on my Instagram about Italy and about this stuff and about this. And, you know, how many people post videos about that they're taking a break from social media? It's like, well, you just posted on it.
Yeah.
How about you just take a break and shut up? Like, that's, you know what I mean? Like, it's so much of what I feel like is just driven by, you know, the response we get from it. I think one of the most interesting things I've realized about distractions is how people, I think, don't really realize how long it takes to get back on a task they were doing by something that seems like such an insignificant distraction. Your phone makes a noise and you pick it up and respond back to someone. That may have taken 10 seconds.
Yeah.
But how long did it actually take you, if it actually pulled you out of where you were, to get back on that task, is a much bigger deal than people think.
Yes.
And yes, maybe a quick text message or response doesn't take you out of your focus. But it probably does. And more importantly, when you pick up your phone, do you then now swipe and look at badge icons that say 6 and 100? And now, even if you don't check them, you're distracted.
Yes.
Because you want to know what you're missing.
Yes.
The biggest reason people can't put their phone down half the time is the fear of missing out.
Yes.
What am I missing? Which is why I believe, other than text messages, and you know this to be true about how we work, I have no badges on my phone. Yeah. Ever. The only ones I have are texts and my things, which is like a to-do app, so that I can remember, because I have such little badges, that is important to me to make sure I know what I'm going to do. Yeah. But that's the reason I have it. Do I really need push notifications from Instagram and from YouTube and from Twitter? Like, why do I need that? What value does it have other than distracting me? It's the reason that they want to send you notifications is they want you to come back in the app. Yes. If I know, yeah, of course it is. Yeah. So you have to just be smart enough to realize just that alone distracts you, even if you don't look at the notification, because you're saying something happened there. And I'm desperate to find. Let me just quickly go check. Yeah. And then you're in there. Yeah. And then you're like, well, Instagram also reminded me of something I need to. And my whole thing is I am not going to blame it on the social media at all. And I'm not even going to blame it. I'm definitely not going to blame it on the social media, because the social media app, if you deleted all the social media apps from your phone, you'll be distracted by something else in your phone.
Yeah.
It's more of just getting yourself to just be a little bit more disciplined and having times where you set your phone apart and realize, and I totally get, because there have been times like I have, an LTE Apple Watch, and I've tried at different times to leave my phone at home and only bring my watch, knowing that I can be reached in an emergency, but yet I can't go on other things. I can't browse, and that's helped in times. But we have this fear of like, oh, well, what if an emergency happens? I feel like if there's an emergency, you probably can get reached.
For sure.
To a point.
Yeah. Yeah, because how'd they do it back in the day,
Yeah.
right? One of a friend of mine, he told me, he said, Michaela, you have to distract your distractions. And the other thing too is, he used to always tell me, like, don't rely on your discipline, because I don't know if we mentioned it in this podcast, the last one, I can't remember, but it's that battery, that willpower.
Yep.
That every single time you make a decision, or you're like, nope, I'm not gonna respond to that. I'm not gonna respond to that. Oh no, I'm not gonna check this. It just little by little goes all the way down. And by the way, if you didn't sleep that night, you don't have a full battery to begin with. So essentially setting yourself up so that you have a strategy where you don't have to use your discipline.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if in the grand scheme of things, it's not worth it to spend your discipline not checking your phone. You want to be disciplined in what you put in your body and working out. Like, there are way bigger things that we got to work on over here. So,
and that's why I like, so when we start talking about some, strategies for it, I think one of the most important first things is to really just like identify your personal distractions.
Yes.
What truly distracts you. One of the things that you can very tangibly look at what distracts you is to look at screen time on your phone, for example, or even on your computer. The screen time, if you're a Mac user, has that too, to just be able to say, where am I spending a lot more time than I don't realize it?
Yeah.
So, of course, there's one side of it that you can change your screen time and allow it to, lock you out basically after 15 minutes. Now, the lockout tends to be too easy to bypass.
Yeah.
But still, for most people, that's probably effective enough, right?
Yeah.
Just an extra step that it's more of almost a reminder that says you've done as much as you said you wanted to do. You probably should move on from that.
Yeah.
And so, but identifying like what actually really distracts you, and identifying what you want to try to pay, because it's also, I think, impossible to just suddenly say, tomorrow I'm going to just work on being less distracted. I think you need to take it, just like we talk about habits all the time. You need to take it step by step. Maybe your first step is, I just want to cut my screen time on my phone in half overall. Or maybe it's not even in half, because your screen time might be used up by nothing but something like Slack, which is something you do need, whatever.
Yeah.
But trying to figure out, okay, I want to spend less time doing this or less time doing this. Maybe it's watching Netflix. Maybe it's doing whatever. And understanding why you want to do it, like we've talked about as well with goals, is the important part. And if you're saying, I want to work out more, or I want to do this more, and you know that you have to get time back to do that, that's kind of your why. Your why. Maybe you want to watch more Netflix.
Yeah.
Okay, so then figure out the time maybe you're wasting during your day or something so that when you sit down there, you can be okay with that, because you've accomplished what you wanted to by eliminating other ones.
Yeah. Yeah. This is going to seem a little bit out of left field, but something that I've been learning a lot about probably over the last maybe like 2 years is regulating your nervous system. So for me, when I used to procrastinate all the time, it was because my nervous system was all out of whack. It was dysregulated. Do you know what the nervous system is?
I mean, not the way I know you want to explain it.
It's essentially, well, first of all, it's called the autonomic nervous system.
Yeah, I don't know about the autonomic nervous system.
It's automatic. It's the way that it's essentially an electrical system of our body, and part of our lives are meant to be in fight or flight, which is like, working out and back in the day, hunting, right? That kind of thing
Mm-hmm.
where, it's necessary and it's needed as a part of life. And then you also have the rest and the digest, which is your parasympathetic. So you have your sympathetic, which is fight or flight, your parasympathetic, which is your rest and digest. We're supposed to go back and forth between it throughout the day. You have times where you're resting. That's also when you're calm, when you're connecting with people. And then the fight or flight, right, where you're working hard and you're doing things and you're disciplined. But most of us are stuck in one or the other and have a really hard time regulating. So some of my procrastination was because I was like stuck in one of the I was just dysregulated.
Okay.
So I had to learn how to regulate myself. And so for me, different, like I can quickly do it with like breathing or taking a walk, like adding some movement into my day. Then I can get back and be focused. But it was just because my system was like all out of whack.
Makes sense. I mean, I think there's so much. I know you've been really obsessed lately about learning more about the brain and that kind of stuff, because it does matter. Obviously, it's the engine of of your whole body.
Yeah.
And realizing what triggers exist and what is proven to
Right.
it plays a big factor.
Yeah.
Because you have to first understand something before you can actually implement it.
Right. Because I would just stay frustrated. So
Yeah.
if I couldn't focus, I would just try to will myself into focus. And then I wasn't even able to be creative like I needed to be within that time. And I didn't realize if I just go for a 5-minute walk
Yeah.
and focus on my breath for a second,
Yep.
that I could come back and be
Yep.
so much better.
Well, that's like the Pomodoro effect technique,
Yes.
whatever it is, which is
let's talk about that.
25 minutes, and that's what weaves right into the 5 minutes. 25 minutes of short burst of work, followed by 5 minute, and that's kind of like I was talking about the one day about the hobbies and about the piano.
Yep.
That's kind of how I looked at that. Is that short thing of what can I quickly do? Maybe it's taking a walk. That is absolutely what I feel like has helped people in this remote world that we've started to live in, that they have done things like that they previously wouldn't.
Right.
At your office, you might not feel weird walking around the office for 5 minutes or something like that. But if you live in a nice peaceful neighborhood and you can quickly step out and take a walk around your block and it only takes 5 minutes, that kind of stuff, people are feeling like, I just like that freedom I have now. What they're not realizing is it's actually just really good for you.
Yeah.
And you're doing things that you didn't normally do.
Right.
And instead of sitting there and focusing for that long, you're naturally doing things that have been proven to work. You just don't even realize it.
Yeah. You're regulating your nervous system and you don't even know it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And so that is, I think, something that is really helpful if you're a person that struggles with focus, is to not have this long goal that I have this, this edit that I have to do, or this task that I have to do, and it's going to take me 8 hours. So I'm going to sit down and just try to, I can't do that. I just can't at all. And I have to now, sometimes it could be that I literally set a timer for 25 minutes or whatever. Other times it can be as soon as I realize it's just not there anymore, to not try to force the issue and to say, I got to do something else for a little bit. And I got to move on until I come back. But then sometimes it's also realizing that there are times that you have to force yourself into getting into a focused state, because if you're one of those people, especially in the creative world, if you're always just waiting for creativity to spark before you do something, you might never do something.
Right.
Because you do have to train yourself to practice the art of creating.
Yeah.
But also not forcing the issue. If you've been doing it for 10 hours and then you're like, I just want to write another chapter, and it's suddenly not flowing, and you're like, it was so easy earlier. Well, you might have ran out.
Yeah. Exactly.
And you have to be smart enough to understand the way that you're working.
Yeah.
And try to just stay in it as long as you can when you're in it. When it's flowing, it's a great time. You also know that it's going to stop.
Yes, exactly.
And not to beat yourself up about it is an important thing.
Oh, it absolutely is. Self-compassion is a huge piece of if you feel like you ever self-sabotage, one of the first things to do is have compassion for yourself. Because when you start to beat yourself up, you will remain in that sabotage kind of cycle. So I love that, using the Pomodoro technique. Another one is creating a distraction-free environment. Well, we kind of touched on this a little bit, but as far as things with your phone and being in an environment that is too, what's the word I'm looking for?
Prone to distractions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is huge. I think that it's, for most people, it probably is as simple as, where is your phone when you're working?
Yeah.
Your phone and your Apple Watch, your things that are connected to your phone that are extensions of your phone, can be major distractions.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't already utilize, like, do not disturb and things on your phone or your watches or whatever, I highly recommend it. The good thing is, you can also, when you go to set do not disturb on your watch or your phone, it says, do you want to turn it on infinitely, or do you want to turn it on for 1 hour or for a certain amount of time?
Yeah.
That 1 hour thing is super important.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just turn your phone on vibrate, because you hear that.
Yeah.
And that gives your brain this, ooh, what is it?
Yeah.
It could be anything.
Yeah.
Most of the time it's absolute crap. But it could be, I could have won $1 million.
Yeah.
I got to check that.
Yeah.
So it's so important to realize that probably one of the biggest distractions you have in your life is your phone.
Yes.
And if you're someone that works with your phone next to you, or takes a step further, one of the greatest features of Apple devices is that, you can continue on all your different devices. So you have your text messages on your phone and your computer and your iPad. That's also a train wreck for disaster.
Yes.
Because if you don't have do not disturb on, well, now it's even easier to quickly text back. And how many times are you having conversations nonstop throughout the day, at all times, with your significant others, your girlfriends, your friends, wasting ton of time, and you're just feeling like it's just integrated. Like, I just quickly go to that app and come back.
Yeah.
It's more than that. You've got to be paying attention. So the easiest way right away is to just get in a habit of using do not disturb. Maybe even if you work from home, putting it out of your visual reach or visual eye contact is just big in general.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
even putting it face down is helpful, but I would say just get it out of there.
Yeah.
Because you want to touch it. The amount of times, there's a stat on your phone that most people don't look at that blows your mind, called pickups per day. How many times you pick up your phone, and what you do each time you pick up your phone on a regular basis. So I will tell you in real time, okay? I'm going to tell you in real time what mine says. Okay, so on your phone, when you go to your settings and you go to screen time, one of the things that it shows you is, see all activity, and it will say pickups. So that's the stat where it says, how many times did you pick up your phone and look at it? And what was first used after the pickup on a regular basis. So in my case today, I have picked it up 40 times, and 7 of those times I grabbed messages. And then I could take it a step further and say, I've spent 9 minutes using messages today, meaning your text. That may be, and it's, only early afternoon or whatever. That's low because we've actually been recording a lot of podcasts. A regular day, that number is super high.
Yeah.
So you may say to yourself, I'm just quickly picking that up because I need to respond to this or respond to this. Times that by how many minutes are used in those apps that you're doing. It is unbelievable how many times you are being distracted and thinking it's an insignificant distraction.
Right.
And it's mind-blowing.
Right. And this is like the compound effect in real life. I'm just going to say, that book?
I've probably heard about it. I always heard about books from you.
There's a book called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, I believe is the name. Anyways, he talks about just like, both positive and negative, like the little things that you do actually add up to really big, beautiful things. But same thing with picking up in the phone.
Yep.
And
I'm not and obviously I always am going to spend a lot of time talking about that technology is the distraction, because honestly it is for most people.
Yeah.
It's not. Very few people have a problem that I just nonstop pick up a book throughout the day and I just have to read for it. Like people, that's not what's normally distracting people are the same things.
Yeah.
And if you're in an office setting and it's for some reason not your phone, it's probably that you're nonstop talking to your neighbor or whatever. But most of the time it's your devices.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
what people are spending most of their time on. And when you look at some of your screen times at the end of a day or at the end of a week, and you look at what your daily, weekly average, my daily average right now over the week is 3 hours, 44 minutes. Now, when I look at some of those, like in my case, 2 hours of that is YouTube. That could have been that I was in my car watching, like a podcast was on. So it's not always going to say like that's actually accurate. But I
Right,
pay
right,
a lot of
right.
attention to the stuff that I know is useless consumption.
Yeah.
Because YouTube, I do listen to a lot of things and I'm not actually watching it.
Yeah.
So, but that could be a distraction too.
For
But
sure.
pay attention to, as much as obviously they build these devices so they're addicting,
Mm-hmm.
there are tools in it that
Oh,
can
yeah.
help you see. And if you were to say, what could I do? What could I have done today if 3 hours and 45 minutes was not with my phone in my hand? All the things you said you wanted to do probably
Yeah.
could have gotten done in that time. You probably could have went to the gym for 3 hours and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
You probably could have called that friend that needed help
Yeah.
that just to talk with. You probably could have spent more time. All the things that we just say we want to do more
Yeah.
of and we say we don't have time for, you had 3 hours and 45 minutes to pick up your phone.
Talk about freedom.
Like,
It's in
and I'm
there.
calling myself out in this. So like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying like this is, Michaela's stats. This is
Mhm.
like, I mean, look at your, let's see what your,
I'm
can you see what
I'm
your time is?
scared.
Let's do it. Let's look
I
at
am-
it.
I am way too scared. Oh my god.
That's real time. This is real time.
Oh man. Let's see.
Go to your screen time and go to your week up top. I can help you find it if you want me to.
I got it. You said pickup?
Well, the pickups first. That'll say today how many pickups you've had of your phone.
Oh, okay. 65
Okay. Most use that
today.
when you pick up,
Messages.
which is probably most common.
Yeah.
And think about it. And that's why I say too
Instagram.
about do not disturb. The only reason that you're naturally picking up the most almost everyone that would look at their screen time messages is the number one thing that is first picked up.
Yeah.
But what that actually tells you is that because it'll also show you when you go to your notifications,
Mm-hmm.
it will show you how many times each app notified you in that day. And so what it allows you to see is if clearly my screen time is high because every single time I get a text message,
Mm-hmm.
it's making me pick up my phone, then simply reducing the amount of times that you get pinged absolutely plays a
150.
150 times your phone has said, I need you. And that's today alone.
Yep.
And 75 of those times or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
you listened to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets worse because if you don't have their phone in your pocket,
Mm-hmm.
they come on your watch.
Right.
So like, you know what I mean? The do not disturb. It's
Yeah.
a real thing.
I know. Yeah. No, it's so true. Even yesterday, my 206 notifications, 144 text messages.
Yeah. So
That's wild.
So technology 100% is something that you really, really,
Yeah.
when you talk about creating a distraction-free environment, something as simple as making your phone a little bit hard to reach, your brain also doesn't like to do extra work.
It does not.
Same reason that when you put your alarm next to you compared to your brain wants to do the easy things. So creating this stupid little obstacle
Yep.
of screen time, making you type in a password to bypass it,
Yeah.
is sometimes enough for your
Yep.
brain to be like, nah, I don't want to worry about it.
Yeah, it's so true. The other thing I think is clutter,
Mhm.
which is why I will never be a minimalist. I know they say never say never, but pretty
Probably
positive about that one. However, I do think, and I grew up in a very messy home, and so
I
for
hope your parents don't
me,
listen to this. They'd be so mad.
I say so many things. My mom is always not happy with me. But no, I really do like that is something that is a huge piece of it is clutter.
Mhm.
So my last move, and I think that's when you realize how much crap you have
Yeah.
is when you move.
Mm-hmm.
So there was I think it was on Instagram I found it, of this challenge where every day you get rid of,
One thing. Or
it was however, like on the 7th day you got rid of 7 things kind of thing. Like it was,
jeez. Is
yeah.
that like a minimalist technique?
Yeah, yes it is.
That seems scary.
But it's a little much. But even if you did one a day,
Yeah.
in a month you'd get rid of 30, 31 things.
Or at the bare minimum, anytime you're going to
28.
get something new,
Yes.
You have, like I do with my kids.
Yeah.
Anytime they get a new toy or something, they have
donate
to
it?
get rid of something else.
Okay.
Either donating it. I mean, I hope it's, if they constantly are throwing things away, then
Yeah.
they stop getting things in general, because it's like, you don't need it. It's just,
Yeah.
and they've actually grasped onto some of that.
That's
Because
good.
it's ridiculous, like the amount of stuff that we
Yeah.
get that we don't need.
So true.
But yeah, I think that's something big. And then obviously some other everyday distraction things. Actually, no, before I forget. And yeah, and also regarding the environment, what's interesting is there are also people that will, there's, tons of people on the super messy, cluttery side that will show you, pictures of Steve Jobs' famous desk and all that kind of stuff that's, full of crap everywhere. So that's not even necessarily for everyone. I'm the same way. Like I clean my desk and everything up before the end of each day so that when I start back up, because that does play a big factor.
Yeah.
Some people aren't that way. So it's kind of going down to that same thing, identifying your personal distractions, what actually matters. Because if you, I look at it the same way, like people with a cluttery desktop on their computer, right? That drives me nuts, because I'm like, you can't focus. How do you even know? Have you gotten better at that?
Yeah, I've gotten better at it.
How about cleaning your screen?
Yeah,
that was
I've
an
also
issue too.
gotten better at that.
Oh my goodness.
He would always just come over to my desk. I'd be like mid-working and
she'd be like, "Can I show you something real quick?" And I'm like, "In a second," because right now I can't even see it. That kind of stuff. My biggest pet peeve is when I go and just see a computer that's just nothing but fingerprints. I'm like, "Hey, why are you touching your screen? You don't have a touchscreen computer. What is causing you to press the screen? Like, it's not doing anything." And people would occasionally come over and like point to something on my screen. I'm like, this is unnecessary. This isn't an iPad here. What's the reason we're doing this? It drives me nuts. Another thing, obviously, productivity when it comes to improving focus. Obviously, the given, breaking task into smaller chunks.
Yeah.
Like just that's a given.
Yes.
When you're writing a book, your task on your to-do list is not write a book.
Right.
Right. It's very small things.
Yeah, I write. I mean, I shouldn't say this, but I'm trying to write every single day for at least 20 to 30 minutes. But that's small.
Yep.
Like super manageable. I can do 20 minutes, even if it's total nonsense. Yep. It's more so the habit of just doing that small task.
And it's even more important, like we've already talked about, there's another episode about goals and stuff, but when you're starting any new habit, you have to start with small chunks. You have to. Or it's just you're going to instantly say, like if you suddenly decide you're going to start going to the gym every day for an hour and a half, and you've never went to the gym, that's just not happening.
No. Remember that show, The Biggest Loser?
Yeah.
That was like so intense for that short amount of time, and almost everyone gained all the weight back because it's just not.
It's like when people win the lottery.
Exactly.
That's not an effective way to learn how to handle money. So it's like sports players, same thing. The reason that most of them lose their money immediately because you're not there's no habit built into your life. Yeah. So just by simply losing weight, if you haven't developed something that makes you keep doing it, it's super important. So 100%. That's a given. If you obviously have some goals and things that you're working on this year, I would definitely encourage you to watch our episode all about goals. We talk a lot about habits. That's for sure. And what I also like, and we'll kind of conclude with this, is and we touched on this even last episode. We always are going to touch on things between a bunch of episodes. So if you haven't listened to previous ones, highly recommend it if you can. Experimenting with different strategies and realizing that the things that might have worked to help you not be distracted, or the things that might have worked that help you get more focused, might change. Yeah. Because the things that distracted you before might not distract you anymore. Yeah. And completely new things may. It may be a new social media app. It may be that you now have an obsession that you want to learn something, so you're obsessed with wanting to go on YouTube to learn it more. It's different.
Yeah, that's a great point.
But experimenting and being okay, realizing that it will change, and being okay with that is the biggest key. Yeah. If you're and to just be honest with yourself. If you're a person that says you don't spend a lot of time on your phone, but your screen time says 5 hours and 55 minutes a day, you're lying to yourself. Yeah. You do, you know what I mean? So you have to be honest enough with yourself and realize, and yes, there are going to be times, screen time, for example, there are people that their work is on nonstop on social media because they're a social media person. Like that's if that's part of your job, I understand that screen time is going to be different. But if you're a person that is saying I just spend way too much time on my phone. There are ways that you can try to
Mhm.
prevent that.
Mhm.
And it doesn't mean that every single, this idea of different strategies, it doesn't mean that you have to delete all your social media off your phone like some people say.
Right.
Doesn't mean that, now maybe you do. Maybe you need to put it, even just your
But
brain doesn't like the fact that if you put it on page 2
yeah.
inside a folder.
Yeah.
I did that last year with a bunch of my social media apps, not even actually to not use them as much, but to just consolidate them. And it's amazing how much my screen time went down
Yeah.
because I didn't want to go through the extra step of
Mhm.
going into the folder to opening the app.
Right.
It made a difference.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even trying to.
That's smart.
So
But I
just
think
create a headache for yourself and your brain
Yeah.
your brain will stop doing dumb things.
Do you think eliminating though, because in my opinion, whenever we do the extremes of things,
Mhm.
I just think that they're so hard to maintain
Yeah, they're
because
short-lived. Yep.
obviously if you're like, okay, I'm going to take a social media break for 30 days, which I've done a lot of those.
Yep.
And at times I do think they're very
Yep.
helpful, especially if you're feeling like if you're getting sucked into like comparison mode and
Yep.
feeling really bad about yourself. Sure, take a little bit of
Mhm.
time, but you didn't actually
Right.
do much
Yep.
to work on the habit unless in that time frame you also limited other things.
I think I think the only reason that those aggressive things are valuable for people is to be able to instantly see what a difference it could make
That's true.
to start to build the habits, right?
Yeah, that's very true.
Like if you went from never going to the gym to 30 straight days, you might not be able to maintain that. But if you realize that in those 30 days you feel better than ever,
Yeah,
it will make you set habits that you can continue to keep.
that's so true.
Much easier than being like, well, if I only go to the gym, if I start small, I'm going to
Mhm.
see such small results too that it is harder to actually be like, is this worth the time?
Right.
Or, the Biggest Loser, they'll lose 150 some pounds in
Yeah.
a short amount of time. Yes, not everyone sustains that, but for sure, they at least in their brain now have realized I felt so much better when I was
Yeah.
doing that, and
Mhm.
that should convince you to
Yeah.
do it more.
And I can.
Yeah, that's
I
why
am
it's
capable
super
of it.
popular on YouTube, and a lot of people do I tried 30 days of this or 30
Yeah.
days because it also sometimes does take that long to even understand if it makes a
True.
difference.
I've been thinking about doing 30 days of cold showers.
I've heard it's cold. Well, that and just the cold plunges are
I know.
huge right now.
What's it,
Just seems so
what's
miserable.
his name?
Cody, my friend
Cody,
Cody.
yeah.
He's obsessed. He's
He's
been doing.
so
I texted him
great.
the other day. I'm like, dude, how are you still doing this? Because I texted him the one day it was supposed to be like 7 degrees in the morning. I'm like, dude, it's gonna be tricky tomorrow. He sent me a picture of him breaking up all the ice.
Yeah.
But yeah, the science behind what they're saying about it, all
Yeah.
that, and I've tried it. I actually went in the shower too early and was just a little colder than I prefer, and I was like, this sucks. Like
We should try it, though.
Oh my gosh, that'd be so.
We should do something like that.
We
I
should have
think.
started at 30 days. Remember I did like the Scott
Yeah.
McKenna challenge. It was 30 days. Every 30
Oh,
days.
yeah.
And the episode at the end of each 30 days, monthly episode would be how that 30-day challenge has gone.
We should try
And our
something like that.
and our viewers and listeners could join. I don't know. Maybe we just spark something. Unless
Maybe
they cut this
we
out of the episode and then no one even know.
No, I think we should leave it.
They
in.
would,
No,
but
maybe
that
I
and
think-
that it is part of what you're saying though. It can be effective because of that reason.
Yeah.
Where yes, it's hard to sustain,
Mm-hmm.
but the effects can make you be like,
Right.
I need to build this into my life more.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Because even when I did, I've done several rounds of like that whole 30.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that?
Yep.
And that definitely taught me a
Mhm.
lot. Also, I think what it taught me too was, oh wow, food does make a huge
Does matter, yeah.
difference.
Uh-huh.
Because there was one whole 30 where I did this on purpose where I didn't necessarily work out much at all. I just changed the way that I ate.
And it made a massive difference. Yeah.
I was like, whoa, that really
Yep.
actually changed my body. So it's kind of crazy. Which we have one more on there. It was to prioritize self-care
Yep.
and rest.
It goes back to like our sleep episode too.
I know.
Super critical.
I just did a YouTube episode all about self-care and self-love
Mhm.
because I think that they're very misunderstood.
Mhm.
So self-care encompasses all the things that you do to care for yourself physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. So I think like when you think of self-care, do you have any negative thoughts about that?
No, but I don't think that that's something that is something that I struggle with either. Like to
Yeah.
your point. So, but I'm sure other people probably absolutely do.
Yeah, because I've just seen a lot of things on Instagram, or like, oh, self-care is so indulgent and it's
Mhm.
expensive, or I've even had people tell me it's unchristian. I'm like, wow. Um, but self-care is anything from brushing your teeth twice a day,
Mhm.
drinking enough water, like moving.
Mhm.
Those are all forms of self-care because you're caring for your body
Right.
physically. And when you don't take care of parts of you, there's usually a negative
Mhm.
side of that. Like if you don't take care of yourself physically,
Mhm.
you're going to get sick.
Yep.
Things are going to not work the way that they've been
You're gonna
designed to
lack
work.
energy.
You're going to lack
Yep.
energy. You're going to talk about lacking focus.
Yeah.
If you don't take care of
Yep.
your body,
If
you
you're
will lack.
exhausted,
Yeah,
it's hard to actually focus. You're sleeping. You're trying to your brain's trying to wake up.
exactly. So it's a huge
Yep.
part of focus is taking care of
Yep.
yourself. And as we say with everything, it's different for everyone. My
Yep.
self-care routine is going to look different
Yep.
than Scott's.
Yep. 100%. So yeah, there's no question. It's hard to be focused a lot for a lot of people.
Mhm.
And the
But it's
distractions,
simple.
it is simple. Yeah, and that's what we're trying to get to, is that there may be some very simple changes that you can
Yeah.
make right now
Yeah.
that actually would make a drastic difference. And just getting an hour back of your
Mhm.
time or whatever, and just trying to think about on a regular basis, what is taking my time,
Mhm.
is something that's worth thinking about, because
Yeah.
there's nothing worse than when you day after day get done with the day feeling like you either didn't get what you wanted
Mhm.
done, and sometimes that's just because you have so much that you can't get it all done.
Yeah.
Other times it's that because you spent 8 hours in front of a computer, but 3 of them were working.
Mhm.
So you're also just frustrating yourself for not
Yeah.
realizing that you could have helped
Yeah.
improve the situation a little bit
For sure.
if you spent a little less time doing the
Yeah.
things that are distracting you. But knowing your personal distractions,
Yep.
knowing how much the environment matters,
Mhm.
and paying attention to all those. I like switching things up. I like
Mhm.
switching up my environments.
Yeah.
I like going to a random coffee shop, even though
Yep.
I have a nice office, and I like just moving around and changing it,
Mhm.
because sometimes it'll put me in this great state, and I'll be
Mhm.
like, ooh, I need to do more of that. Other
Mhm.
times I'll realize, actually, you know what? I'm actually more distracted there than I
Yeah.
think. And I just am getting there because I just want to kind of get away.
Right.
So just learning, understanding
Yep.
what messes you up
Yes.
and what
So,
doesn't.
question.
Yep.
From this episode, is there anything that you are thinking in your internally, you're like, I think I need to do this one thing differently to
Cold
help me
showers.
focus? What?
Cold showers.
Cold showers.
Now, I mean, yeah, that maybe is one that we try. But no, I think with me, I've been really trying hard to consistently not be distracted with devices during that. And I feel like I've
Mhm.
gotten much better at that. I really
Yeah.
utilize the do not disturb a lot on my phone. And I like the fact
Yeah.
that when you do not disturb on your watch, it also does it on all your devices.
Mhm.
I think that's been huge. And to realize,
Yeah.
most importantly, well, now we're going into it again, but when you are on a do not disturb and you're worried, oh, well, what if there's an emergency? Do not disturb, when you go into your settings, there's things that say when someone calls me back to back, or when these certain people call me, let it go through. There are
Mhm.
ways that you can make sure that you're covering your bases,
sure.
aka your excuses of why you don't put it in do not disturb, by saying, I can have a focus mode that's
Mhm.
called work, where only these people can contact me,
Yeah.
or only these apps.
Yeah.
That's a great starting point.
Mhm.
And it really, really helps you to eliminate the stuff that realistically you probably don't need to pay attention to during your workday.
Mhm. That's good.
Especially with spouses, or all like I have conversations all the time with my wife of just that when I'm working as much as I can, like, just let me work.
Mhm.
Like unless you need, I don't mean that in a mean way, but like
Yeah.
it's the same way when she's working too.
Yeah.
It's just to a point. I mean, your spouse, your girlfriend, they know you're working.
Yeah.
And if they don't need something, you should
Mhm.
try to also be training them.
Mhm.
Like, it really distracts me, and I'm
Mhm.
trying to get better at being distracted. So you
Communicate.
don't need to send me a picture of a puppy that you thought was super cute. It's just not that important.
Yeah.
I don't know. Some training. Kids too, like
Mhm.
trying to get them
Oh,
to
yeah.
understand if I'm working from home
Mhm.
and you have a spouse that can work with you, of like, hey,
Mhm.
try not to, because you don't want to say no to you don't want to say
I
get
know.
away from your kids.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you have this open door where they're running in nonstop
Mhm.
in your office, that's not distracting you.
Yeah. And what are they then learning?
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
All right, it's good stuff. As you could tell, we were a little not focused and all over the place. That's how we roll. But no, just kidding. We hope this is helpful to you. Comment below. What are some tactics that you feel like you've used in your life?
Yeah.
Maybe it can help us. And if you think we should do this 30-day
Cold shower.
well, that challenge, but more importantly, like a new 30-day every
That
month,
is
and then
so
have one
cool.
episode that is what did we learn, and then also what's the next 30-day challenge. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Please say yes, guys.
Okay. Thanks for watching.
Bye, guys.